Now coming to Indian and world geography, this is very important, and a lot of questions are asked from geography combined with environment and current affairs. The three most important sources are the atlas. It is more important than the NCRTs itself. Correlate with the current affairs and newspapers. 11th and 12th NCRTs, there is no need to read 6th to 10th NCRTs, because when I started my preparation, I was advised to read all the NCRTs first for a couple of months. So I would not suggest that. Start with the books that are most essential, and if you feel that you are not understanding these, then go back to the NCRTs. We have developed a certain level of understanding, and we do not need to go through the basic NCRTs again and again. Do not spend even one day on anything that is not needed. Spend that day wisely. Spend that day with your friends, so enjoy that day instead of studying anything that is not needed. So Atlas, 11th and 12th NCRTs, and GC Leong. I think it's a wonderful book. If time permits, you may watch Mrunal geography videos. They are really useful. I think they are made by Rajtanil ma'am, and you may watch the video and then read the chapter. That would make it more easier. Other sources like Khullar, Majid Hussain, these are good books, but read it only if you have excess time and excess money. So read selectively and do focus on maps. Now let's talk about atlas reading. Everyone buys an atlas, but I don't know how you read it, how you focus on those atlas. There are 3 to 5 MCQs every year on an average. Every day spend at least 15 minutes. Focus on one region per day, or like you can focus on, if you're starting it early, you can focus on one region per week and strengthen that region. Now which regions to focus? Focus only on important maps, those maps that are in news, those regions that are in news. For example, Syria, it's in news, North Korea is in news, South China Sea is in news. So focus on these areas, or wherever Mr. Prime Minister or Mr. President they are visiting, those regions become important. Mark these important locations on the atlas, and along with a short info about that particular location, so that next time when you read the atlas it becomes easier. Let me show you how I did it. So these are the must read books for geography. Those who are new to this preparation, go to the market and buy these books. These 5 books are more than sufficient. Now look at this page on the atlas. This is a map of northern India, Jammu and Kashmir specifically, and look at this. I have pasted a page over here, and whatever important news I found regarding Jammu and Kashmir, I used to write it down. Whatever mnemonics or whatever details I found useful, I used to write it down here, and I used to mark it on the map itself. For example, the hydropower projects like the Kishan Ganga, can you see here? Then the various passes which are important, then the rivers, the dams, see this Baglihar, Kishan Ganga, etc. Then a little about Indus Water Treaty, or for example whatever I find important in the NCRTs, I've written it down here. Then I have made some silly mnemonics, or if I found it on the internet I have written it down here. See this, Himalayan ranges from north to south, kal jana padega desh se mujhko. So that's how I remembered it. Rivers, I just checked river bank surroundings, Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Bias, Satluj. So it becomes easier. And then there is a simplified map. I think it's simple. So I've made this map, and then the mountain ranges, the rivers, and how to remember the stuff. That is all given here. So this is how I studied my atlas. Let me show you the other pages. This is the physical map of that region. So I have marked whatever I found useful here. For example, the Ramsar sites, as you can see, Hokera and Surinsar Mansar, Kanjli Lake, Renuka Lake, etc. These are the Ramsar sites, and other important stuff I've marked it on the map itself. Now this is the map of the northeast region. Again, I've pasted a page and I've written down the important points, important mnemonics that I found. See, this is about river Brahmaputra. It is a very important river, and the points I found on Wikipedia, then on in the NCRTs, I've mentioned it here. This is the course, the right bank, left bank, tributaries, and how to remember them. My mnemonics are sometimes in English, Hindi, or in my mother tongue Marathi, so they may not make sense to you, but you have to develop your own memory techniques and remember them because there is no other option. Then MCQs on this map, I've written it down here. In MCQs that have appeared in the previous year papers, the mountain ranges, the passes, these are behind this page. I have not clicked a picture of that. So as you can see, mention important information on the map itself. For example, now I don't know what this is. This is, I think, the Victoria Memorial, Kolkata. Yes, but I've remembered it as Rudrasagar Lake, Tripura. I imagined that there is a lake in front of this memorial here somewhere backside, and this memorial is in the northeast in Tripura, and there is a Rudrasagar lake near this memorial, and that's a Ramsar site. So that is how I remembered it. It doesn't make sense, but it does help you. And the important national parks, Ramsar sites, everything I've mentioned it over here. The passes, for example, the Namdafa National Park, if you can see, then in Tanki, I don't know how it's pronounced, then the Sangai Deer, Loktak Lake, etc. This is the physical map. Regarding world geography, many students find it very difficult. Make a rough sketch and mention the important points on that map. For example, this is South America, so you can see I have mentioned the currents, then the mountain ranges, the rivers, whatever I find useful I have mentioned it on that map, and I have pasted it on that page itself. This is the map of North American continent. Then this is Africa. Africa is quite complicated, but do try to remember the important landmarks, the important important features in physical geography. Remember, physical maps, the maps of physical geography are more important than the political maps. However, those regions that are in news, you have to remember their political maps as well, their capitals, because questions sometimes appear in the examinations which ask you to arrange those countries or their capitals in a vertical or horizontal manner. So you have to remember it. So you can use such techniques, or you can devise your own techniques so as to remember these maps in a better way. Now what happens is, if you spend 15 minutes every day, you become so familiar with these maps that it becomes really easy in the examination. So start your study with either a revision hour or spend 15 or 20 minutes with the map. It will give a beautiful start to your study. Now while you are reading the NCRTs, I'll tell you how to read it. I'll give you some tips. They say that reading NCRTs is very easy and many students finish it within 1 or 2 days, but how you read is very important. Okay, NCRTs are filled with lot of important stuff, and you may get confused about those important points in the examination. Also, NCRTs are not perfect. A lot of information has been given without its background or without explaining it properly. So you need to see geography videos on Runal or YouTube first, so that you have a clear visual impression and you have clear concepts. Keep your atlas handy. Whatever important locations are mentioned in the NCRTs, you have to mark it on your atlas. Then compile everything in a single source. Make as few books as possible so that you can revise it at the end. And this, if you do this, if you compile everything, if you compile the news, the current affairs in the NCRTs itself, it will also help you in your mains GS1 preparation. Now take a look at this page. If newspaper or websites have any important information related to a particular topic, then do make a note, identify what is the crux, or take a printout and paste it at that page itself. For example, if you can see, this page tells us about migration, immigrants. So what I've done is, there was this article in Live Mint which I found on one of the websites like Insights on India or somewhere, and I found it to be useful. It could come in either of the three stages, so I just took a printout and I pasted it over here. So you can identify important articles and then go to the market, get printouts of those articles and do a compilation on the NCRT itself, so it makes life easier for you. And this is how I used to mark whatever is important either for mains or for essay or for interview or for prelims. Again here, on this page tells us about Indian diaspora. So instead of just reading whatever is given in this NCRT, which is definitely not updated, what you can do is, whatever news or whatever important stuff you find at other places, just get a printout or write it down, scribble it on a page and paste it over here, so that next time when you read, the reading becomes more comprehensive and you have a lot of information just by reading your NCRTs. You compare this NCRT with the NCRTs of other aspirants, you will find a lot of difference. This will be packed with a lot of stuff, lot of information, and those guys may finish their NCRTs within a few hours, but I used to take a lot of time to complete my NCRT, and at the end it did benefit me. Look at this page. While you are reading, you may make maps, rough maps. I would suggest you should practice the map of India and try to make it as realistic as possible, because you see, you're reading about India, and if you make very bad sketches about our own country, it doesn't look properly. It doesn't look proper. So if you're absolutely not good at drawing, then you may sketch it, you may make blocks as well, squares and circles, that's okay. But if you think that by practicing you can make better maps, then please do practice it. And what better way to practice than while reading the NCRTs? Read the NCRTs, make the maps, mark the important mountains, the plateaus, the physical features. And like here, see, this is river Godavari, where my city Nanded is situated, on the banks of river Godavari. And this is river Krishna. This is the northern rivers Yamuna and Ganga, the right bank and left bank tributaries. I had also made silly mnemonics in Hindi and Marathi in order to remember all the left and right bank tributaries. There wasn't a question, but I was still prepared. So you can see here, these are my mnemonics. They won't make sense to you, but you have to develop your own mnemonics. It may take time. Spend half an hour on that map, okay? Develop a memory trick that will help you a lot in the future. Again, a map which I have pasted on this page. It mentions the important landmarks in that region and my ways of remembering it. Now this page, this chapter which tells us about the drainage system, if you do not have the map in front of your eyes, how are you going to remember it? You will just rote learn. So instead of that, you have to remember it anyways. But if you have a map, if you remember it using proper techniques, then you'll remember it in a better way for a longer time, right? So I would suggest, if you have time, then do practice these techniques, because if you do not use them, you will end up spending more years uh, in this preparation. Instead, spend a little time, spend half an hour on that page itself, and that might add 1 mark, 2 marks to your overall score, and it does make a difference. So this is my map regarding the drainage systems. I have drawn a rough sketch of all the important rivers and their tributaries, and I've tried to remember them as well. As I said, there are difficult concepts in the NCRTs, so you have to see videos, you have to refer to the internet and simplify those concepts, and then write it down in your own language, okay, like I've done over here, and paste those rough sketches so that it becomes easier for you during your second reading. Another thing that you can do is, while you're focusing on maps, you can compile them and attach all the maps in that NCRT, the important maps, on the first page itself, so that during the end, when you have very little time, you can just look at these maps and you can revise them quickly. It helps during your prelims as well as during your mains. Use memory techniques, as I have said again and again. I used to make a lot of mnemonics. I used to remember it that way, because there are so many names, you are more likely to get confused in the end. So, develop your own mnemonics and remember them, because there's a lot of fact overload and we can't help it. There's no other way. Then compile everything, all your tricks and all your important points on a page, and then stick it at the start of the book. So at the start of every NCRT, I used to have my own important points, the tricks, and the maps. So although the NCRT was packed with lot of stuff, but if I had to revise it within, say, half an hour, then this made it easier for me. Now, whether to read GC Leong or not, there is a lot of confusion. You may skip it if you are hard pressed for time. I personally loved the book and I do recommend reading it. Now, the initial part overlaps with your NCRT, but chapter 15 onwards, you have climatic regions, and they are important both for prelims and mains. This year, there was a question on the monsoons. So, the information given in this book did help me in writing those answers. There are many potential MCQs and potential mains questions which can be found in this book. Again, while reading this book, you have to focus both on mains and on prelims. Like on this page, I have written about the time zones in India, whether we should have a single time zone or there is a need for multiple time zones, because it was in news and there were articles on the internet. So I've written the important points for mains here, and also I've mentioned whatever is important for prelims from this chapter. This is how you should study. I think this will help you for both prelims and mains. In this book, you can make small diagrams and you can write it down in your own words. Okay, and there are a lot of names given. For example, number of mountain peaks have been mentioned, cities, places have been mentioned. Do not read and remember these things. What you need to do is, based upon the previous year questions, you'll get an idea regarding the kind of MCQs that are asked. So you have to focus on them, and if you do not understand what to read, at least focus on these points which are given in orange. So these can be MCQs. Okay, the climatic regions that I was talking about, these are very important. For example, this is chapter 18 on the hot deserts. So what you need to do is you have to focus on the maps, the charts, mark the important MCQs, and at the end of the chapter very few MCQs and questions are given, but do not miss those. The latter part of each chapter, the end portion, is important for mains. See, these maps are very important. So for example, the questions like why are most hot deserts located at 30 degrees north south and towards the west of continents. So questions like these you can mention it over here, and you can draw a rough sketch of these maps if such questions arise in your mains. Okay, and these can be drawn in the mains as well, a rough sketch. Okay, this will fetch you more marks. See, if you do not do things differently, you are not going to get additional marks and you will remain in the crowd. There are only 100 seats and you're competing with people who are trying different strategies, different stuff. So you have to develop certain things which make you stand out. Okay, so focus on such things. Now this chapter 16 on the monsoon type of climate. So focus on the map, mark important MCQs, then see what can be useful for your mains like these charts. Okay,